Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute ultimate what-if thought experiment. What happens to the Earth if humanity just suddenly disappears? We aren't really looking at how we leave, but rather what exactly happens to the world we leave behind.
Picture this. You wake up and there's just utter silence. There's no hum of morning traffic, no distant airplanes, no glowing phone screens lighting up with a dozen group chat notifications. It's just you navigating a sudden, drastically changed world. Or, maybe it's just the world itself, completely devoid of humans. How quickly does nature actually take back our carefully engineered reality?
All right, let's lay out our roadmap. We're covering 5 main areas today: the last human standing, the fate of livestock, the nuclear question, crumbling concrete towers, and finally, our million-year legacy. We're going to start from the immediate aftermath and zoom all the way out to the deep-time geological footprint we'll leave behind.
Section 1. The last human standing. Solo survival. Okay, so if literally everyone else just vanished, how long could you realistically survive as the absolute last person on Earth?
Let's look at the timeline here.
Short term?
It's surprisingly easy. For the first few days to weeks, you'd probably have a pretty massive false sense of security. I mean, grocery stores are fully stocked, clean water still flows right from the tap, and vehicles are just sitting there idle, totally usable with plenty of fuel everywhere. But man, that clock is ticking on modern infrastructure. Within weeks to months, power grids that need constant human oversight are going to fail. And without that power, municipal water supplies go bad and unmaintained systems just break down. Looking further out, say 1 to 30 years, your biggest threats aren't movie monsters or zombies. They're actually really simple things. A minor infection without access to fresh antibiotics, the physical decline of aging, and of course, the crushing psychological toll of absolute solitude.
So, to beat that ticking clock, your survival hinges entirely on rapidly picking up a whole new set of skills to replace all those failing modern conveniences. Canned food doesn't last forever, right? So you have to master gardening and food preservation. You need to really understand water filtration. You basically have to become your own mechanic to keep solar systems and backup generators humming along. And you've got to do all of this while navigating wildlife. We're talking packs of feral dogs or returning predators that will very quickly begin reclaiming our urban areas. Ultimately, even with all these skills, experts estimate a single survivor might make it anywhere from 5 to 30 years. And that's if they're incredibly lucky.
Section 2. The fate of livestock. Who survives? Because, let's face it, we aren't the only ones here. Let's look at how our heavily domesticated farm animals handle the sudden lack of human farmers.
Here's the wild part about this. The very traits we selectively bred into these animals, that's exactly what's going to be their immediate downfall. Take wool sheep, for example. We bred them to grow massive amounts of fleece. Without humans around to shear them every year, they will literally go wool blind. They'll become completely immobile, overheat, and succumb to infections. It's a similar story for dairy cows. They've been bred to produce up to 10 gallons of milk a single day. Without a farmer there to milk them, they're going to suffer from severe infections that turn fatal really quickly. On the flip side, the animals closest to their wild ancestors are absolutely going to thrive. Pigs are notorious for just digging under fences when they get hungry. And feral cats and larger dogs, they'll seamlessly transition right back to being self-sustaining hunters.
But wait, there is a massive physical hurdle here, even for the animals that are genetically tough enough to survive: the captivity problem. Human artifacts, like wire fences, are going to trap millions of animals. Normally, farmers rotate grazing animals between fields, but if they're locked in a single enclosure, livestock will just quickly strip a field of grass and then starve. Plus, they'll completely run out of access to safe, pumped drinking water. And what really dooms many herds is the fact that modern farming relies heavily on artificial insemination. There is a severe lack of viable, intact males left in these isolated herds to actually breed the next generation. So for so many animals, our fences are simply going to be their final resting place.
Section 3. The nuclear question. Meltdowns and fallout. As humanity's fences do their damage, our unattended infrastructure poses an even bigger, much more dramatic threat. What happens to the hundreds of nuclear power plants scattered across the globe?
First off, we need to bust a massive Hollywood myth right away. Unattended nuclear reactors are not going to spontaneously detonate like atomic bombs. It's just not going to happen. Atomic bombs require highly enriched uranium or plutonium, along with incredibly precise explosive triggers. Commercial nuclear fuel is made from low-enriched uranium. It physically cannot generate a nuclear explosion.
On top of that, these plants are designed with massive redundancies. Without human intervention, a sudden loss of electrical power from the failing grid triggers something called a scram. This is an automated shutdown procedure. Basically, electromagnets release these neutron-absorbing control rods right into the reactor core. Bam! This instantly brings the active nuclear chain reaction to a halt. But, unfortunately, that's really only the beginning of the story.
And here's where we see the real danger. Even after a scram, the spent fuel remains incredibly hot and requires constant cooling. So, step 1. Automated diesel backup generators kick in to pump cooling water. Step 2, because no one is out there delivering fuel, those generators run out of diesel, usually within a day or so. Step 3, the backup supply of cooling water, which in the US is federally mandated to last 30 days, begins to slowly boil off into steam. And step 4, eventually, that water boils away completely. The exposed radioactive core heats up dramatically. This superheats the remaining moisture, breaking hydrogen bonds to create highly pressurized hydrogen gas. Eventually, that explodes, blowing the literal roof off the containment building, while the core itself melts down into the concrete floor below. This scatters radioactive debris all over the local area. So, it's a terrifying localized disaster for sure, but it's not a global planet killer.
Section 4. Crumbling concrete towers. Nature reclaims. Once that immediate dust settles and the decades start passing, we have to ask about our monuments. How long will our massive modern cities actually stand empty?
Think of a city in a somewhat humid climate that gets cold winters. The skyline is not going to last nearly as long as you might think. After just 25 years without humans doing basic maintenance, sealants fail, window glass starts falling out, and uncleared debris blocks roof drains, which allows water to pool up. Fast forward to year 50, and that pooled water has seeped deep into the concrete. The winter freeze and summer thaw cycles expand and contract that trapped water, which cracks the concrete wide open. That allows moisture to reach the internal steel rebar. The steel rusts, expanding as it oxidizes, and literally blows apart the structural integrity from the inside out. By 95 to 100 years, that heavily deteriorated frame just gives up. A heavy windstorm, a deep snowfall, or even a minor seismic event will collapse that proud skyscraper into a totally unrecognizable pile of rubble.
The real villain here, the ultimate destroyer of modern human architecture? It's simple water intrusion. We spend massive amounts of energy every single day keeping nature, and specifically water, out of our buildings. Without humans constantly pumping out basements, clearing gutters, and patching roofs, water gets into absolutely everything. It is the most destructive, relentless force against our concrete towers. Section 5. Our million-year legacy. Deep time footprint. So if our giant cities crumble into dirt within just a few centuries, what remains? What will actually survive to prove we were ever here at all?
250,000. That is the number of years that plutonium-239 will remain detectable in the Earth's environment as a distinct pollutant. This specific isotope only occurs in nature in just incredibly minuscule amounts. But because of our intense nuclear weapons testing during the Cold War, we've basically seeded the entire globe with it. To a future geologist or, hey, a visiting alien intelligence 250,000 years from now, that unnatural chemical signature is going to be a glaring billboard saying an advanced industrial civilization used to live here.
But pushing out even further into the future, millions of years from now, those visiting aliens aren't going to find our skyscrapers. Instead, they're going to find massive industrial fossils. For tens of thousands of years, the unnaturally straight, flattened coastline edge of the island, where the Hong Kong airport was built, will look entirely artificial. But the true million-year survivors? They're the holes we dug. Massive underground Australian lead mines and ultra-deep South African gold mines cut into incredibly hard rock will slowly fill with sediment washed down by rainwater over millennia. This is going to create dense, perfect, geometric casts of our tunnel systems, hidden deep beneath the Earth's crust, surviving essentially forever. It's a super humbling thought to leave you with at the end of this explainer, right? We look up at our towering glass cities and we just assume there are crowning achievements, monuments that will outlast us all. But the fascinating, science-backed truth is that our grandest cities will fall incredibly fast, to something as simple as rain. Instead, the radioactive dust we scatter to the wind and the empty, dark holes we carve deep into the earth, those will be the true, enduring echoes of our existence for millions of years to come. So what do you think about that legacy? Thank you so much for joining me on this thought experiment, and I really hope you leave with a whole new perspective on the world we've built.